So, why does Jimmy Rings like that white-haired lady?
That's a good question. I think mostly because of that emotional ball thing that he took out of his butt, so then he could, like, feel his feelings and stuff.
Huh. I wonder why it got canceled.
You are my sunshine. You are my sunshine.
I think we should watch it.
You are my sun. You are my sunshine. You are my sun.
This is perfect. This is everything we've waited for 20...
Jackson, tell them.
Right.
Hey, sorry for the delay in this video, but my gosh, did I have some thoughts about these rumors. For those of you who don't know, since the Halo TV show was canceled a couple of weeks ago, there have been a lot of rumors circling around about who might or might not pick up the series. And one rumor in particular caught my interest. There was like a screenshot of a leak, of a tweet, of a something. Anyway, it was hard to know the validity of this rumor, but of course this rumor led the Halo community to doing what it does best, speculating the crap out of the situation, which I personally am a fan of. But I want to say this straight out. I am not here to speculate at all about what might or might not happen. Actually, I am here to pitch an idea, and quite literally beg Christopher Nolan to make this project happen. Chris, I know it is very unlikely that you watch any of these videos or will ever hear me saying this, but if by some miracle and stroke of luck you find yourself in front of this video, please hear me now. In this dark time for the Halo community, you are the hero Halo deserves.
Because it's the hero Gotham deserves.
And most certainly, the one it needs right now. Okay, not to bring up ancient history or anything, but the Halo TV show didn't really work. And I've tried my best not to bash it too hard because despite the corporate issues and creative turmoil the show experienced, I know there were still some good people who cared about the Halo video games that were involved in this thing. And also in TV and film in general, there are always so many people involved and so many moving parts that even the best creators and writers with the best of intentions can lose control of the project they initially held so dear. But in this case, the writers famously did not care about Halo at all. And to be brutally honest, and if I can be a bit dramatic for a minute, they took something that a lot of us hold dear, stripped it of all of its heart and soul, burned its charm, boiled its characters, hollowed it out, and paraded around in its corpse like a naked lunatic in a child's Halloween costume. Okay, so maybe that is a little bit dramatic and harsh, but what I'm driving at is that a continuation of this TV show is not the way to go. No matter how much you steer the current plot away from its previous trajectory, it just left such a sour taste in everyone's mouth and should definitely be abandoned if you want to get another Halo project off the ground at all. Also, you might notice I keep using the term project and not TV show because I really don't think Halo should be a TV show. Halo's story would be best adapted, in my opinion, into a trilogy of epic-like films on a par with Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogies. And yes, I do recall that Peter Jackson once was involved with a Halo-like project, which sadly did not get off the ground. But the point is, it's got a grand story to tell, and cutting it into pieces kills its intrigue and momentum. See, I really felt like one of the major weaknesses of the Halo TV show was how long and drawn out those episodes were. It just made it feel like it was killing time throughout most of the script to fill up those long and chopped up run times needed for a season of television. So, okay, here's my pitch for the Christopher Nolan Halo movie. And again, Chris, if by some miracle you're watching, this is just a rough draft, feel free to take some liberties with the details, of course. Also, yes, sadly, this Halo movie does not exist in any form or fashion. This is just something I created in Photoshop. I didn't actually find it buried in the woods, as I may have previously alluded to. So let me lay out the structure of this pitch a little bit. I don't have the entire script written out as if it's a movie just kind of ready to make, though I do actually have a script, which I did find buried in the woods, as I previously alluded. But the point is, this is just one or two scenes that I've written out very quickly just to kind of give you a taste of how certain particular scenes might be played out for emotional effect. But on top of that, I have a few key scenes kind of outlined, and then the rest of the plot follows pretty closely to the original game. So let me just go ahead and start. We open up on a shot of planet Reach as viewed from space, and it's currently being glassed by the Covenant. The title cards play on top of the shot of Reach, burning, to let the image of defeat set in. As the music builds, we cut to a radar monitor that shows a large object as we see Captain Key's reflection in the screen. We hear Keyes say something like, "What am I looking at here?" Cortana starts to talk to Keyes about the object they're studying on the screen and how the scale of it is bigger than anything they've ever seen before, Covenant or human. This would also be a good moment for Cortana to say something like, "Whatever it is definitely not a natural formation." So we cut to a closer up shot of Captain Key's name tag so we can read it clear and well for all of the audience to see, before we match cut to another lapel that also reads Keyes. But as we pull back, we realize that this Keyes is written on the lapel of a jacket that's laying on the ground next to a young woman, his daughter, Miranda Keyes. She's reading a manual and repairing parts of the ship. She's sweating and wiping her hands on her forehead like a mechanic while old rock music plays. Sergeant Jenkins walks up and asks why she's listening to this old crappy music. She explains that she likes it because it's history. It's what we leave behind so we can find it again after we lose ourselves. Something kind of dramatic like that. Sergeant Jenkins responds by saying something like, well, I prefer better sounding history personally. They laugh it off and we can tell that they're very close by the way the two of them interact. Then when Miranda gets up, Sergeant Jenkins pulls her close and we realize there might be some romantic tension going on here. Miranda asks what Sergeant Jenkins is doing here anyway, and Sergeant Jenkins says, Captain needs you on deck. Suddenly Miranda gets very nervous, she wipes off her forehead, lets go of Sergeant Jenkins, grabs her jacket, and goes without saying a word. Okay, so let me break the formal pitch for a second to expand on a few things. Yes, Miranda Keyes will be the co-star of this movie, as I envision it. I picture her playing a sort of similar role to the pilot from Halo Infinite, in that Master Chief can still be allowed to be a silent two-dimensional archetype if he has another three-dimensional character to react to him and support the story with a more proper hero's journey arc. You see, in a good Halo story, Master Chief does not change. He doesn't need to feel his feelings or get wrapped up in an existential crisis that will help him to grow because it will ultimately slow him down. And if Chief was able to experience these setbacks and hesitations, then he wouldn't be a Spartan. He wouldn't be that archetype that we know him as, the big green tank. As the last Spartan, his arc ended long ago on Reach. So instead, he now stands in the role of the hero archetype, sort of like the Terminator in T2, but even less chatty than Arnold.
Trust me.
Meanwhile, Miranda gets to suffer from flaws, ego, insecurity, and a fear that she won't live up to her father's great esteem. Miranda gets to grow with the audience because she is the placeholder for the audience. Now, this is the biggest departure from the games, but because we don't control the Chief in watching a film as we would in a game, this change is necessary for us to stay emotionally invested in the story. Throughout the film, Miranda learns by watching and spending time with the Chief to trust herself as he does and slowly grow into the hero that Chief represents inside of all of us, as shown through Miranda. And here's my thought on why Miranda is the perfect character to do this with instead of just writing a new Marine character or using Sergeant Jenkins or whoever else. First of all, Halo is majorly inspired by the Alien franchise.
Game over, man. It's game over.
And who can even name a more iconic character than Ripley from Alien? So in this interpretation of Halo CE's story, almost everything remains the same as far as the plot is concerned, just with the addition of a version of Miranda Keyes that strongly favors the space mechanic vibes of Ripley from Alien. Also, I just grew up with so many great sci-fi stories that were headed by great female characters. I'm thinking, of course, of Ripley, but also of Shell from the Portal games, Princess Leia from Star Wars.
You're braver than I thought.
And possibly most importantly, Sarah Connor from Terminator and T2. A character like this would be extremely welcome in this Halo story. Also, considering Miranda's character growth and, spoiler alert, eventual death in later installments, that would make an introduction like this carry more weight as well as add to the meaning of that future growth and make her later moments more impactful for the audience. On top of all of that, when you think about it, a majority of Halo CE's story revolves around finding Captain Keyes once we get split up on the Halo ring. So adding Miranda as a main character gives us much more emotional investment and incentive in finding him, and makes his sacrifice and demise that much more meaningful and devastating. This becomes a story about a daughter searching for her heroic and esteemed father and finding the hero in herself along the way. So anyway, back to the plot. Eventually, we'd want to establish that she wants to trust herself, but she keeps making mistakes and doesn't really believe she's got what it takes to be like her father, while also being haunted by the horrifically high expectations and pressures of her mother, Dr. Catherine Halsey. And I don't want to make Keyes seem like he's dismissive towards his daughter. I want to make sure that it seems like they have a very good and close relationship, and that Keyes remains the kind of strong and honorable man that we know him as, almost Steve Rogers-like from Captain America. Luckily, it'll be easier to balance that he cares about her, but she still feels not good enough for him, because he'll kind of have to be dismissive towards her in the beginning when the Covenant's invading the ship and everything's getting crazy, and he, just wants to protect her and make sure that he can take care of the aliens. So my idea was that Miranda comes back and her father gives her Cortana's chip before talking to her about what their next steps are. Suddenly, they're interrupted by an alert that they're being invaded. So everyone will go into a panic, and eventually we'll find out that whatever Miranda was working on was something like the ship's defenses or shields or something that would have warned them sooner or prevented the Covenant from boarding the ship in the first place. So boom, immediately something she did wrong has launched us into the plot of this film. And I think her father should hand her the pistol that isn't loaded like in the game and lead her into the air ducts while he and the crew go to fight the Covenant invading the ship. And I want Miranda to want to fight, but Captain Keyes will stress to her that the most important thing is for her to wake him up before the Covenant get to him. So then we get to have this really kind of horrific and alien-like scene of her crawling through the air ducts as the ship's getting torn apart and there's aliens everywhere. Maybe there's one that somehow makes it into the air ducts, and we get to kind of just sneak that little bit of horror tension into this movie already. Anyway, then she'll finally make it to that room that they're holding Chief, but everyone is gone, and she has to sneak around the Covenant to open his pod. So maybe she makes a quick move past an elite and slams the door shut on him. And while it's pounding on the door, creating this tension, she's trying to plug the Cortana chip in so it can automatically open his pod, but it's not working. Maybe a plasma gun or something jammed this thing that she's supposed to put Cortana in, so she can't. So now she's got to rely on her skills herself to open this pod, but she's thinking, crap, that she's not able to do it. So there's lots of tension, right? And she's got to trust herself. This elite's banging on the door. Anyway, so while she's struggling to figure out the mechanics of waking him up manually, the elite stops pounding on the door and lights up his sword and starts to cut a hole through the door. The suspense is rising until the door finally opens, and right then she's able to open Chief's pod, but she's backed into a corner by this elite with a sword, and we're not 100% sure whether she was able to open the pod or not. So she raises her pistol at the elite, which doesn't phase it at all, but it clicks because it isn't loaded, as we know, but the elite falls down anyway. As it falls, we reveal the Master Chief, Sierra 117, standing behind the elite, backlit by the red emergency lights in all of his green glory. Chief looks at her and says something like, "You need a weapon." Okay, another brief pause for a couple of notes on Chief. This is Halo CE's story, so the Chief needs to be in his Mark V armor. This is not only more accurate, but the fans will love it, and it'll further separate it from the recent TV show, and if you change his armor more throughout the movies, you'll be able to make more toys and sell and make more money, so everybody wins, right? Also, pretty non-negotiable, and this should honestly go without saying at this point, but I'm gonna say it anyway, no more taking off Chief's helmet and showing his face. He is a silent Clint Eastwood again. Very little talking. And when he does talk, he needs to be voiced by Steve Downes again. No exceptions. I mean, come on. So after this, the rest of the plot can stay mostly the same. They get on the life pod, make it to Halo, but, and this is important, Miranda does not do a lot of killing in this movie because she is not a Spartan.
Cyborgs don't feel pain. I do.
There needs to be a separation between how incredibly hard to defeat the Covenant is and how small humanity is, and how Spartan, the Master Chief, is like the only thing that stands between complete annihilation and a possibility of hope. Now, don't get me wrong, I expect Miranda to become a complete badass throughout this trilogy, but think about Sarah Connor or Ripley from Alien when we first met them. They didn't know how to fight, they didn't know anything. They started out like a child or a fool that hasn't learned yet. Even John Connor, who eventually became the leader of the Resistance in Terminator, didn't know how to fight for crap in Terminator 2. He just stood behind Arnold and let him protect him, as Miranda should with Master Chief in this first film. I also think it would be an important scene to see the first ship of the rescued Marines get shot down by the Covenant after Chief saves them. This would definitely help to show that even our best efforts are almost no match for the Covenant. It would show that this is really a losing battle, and we don't know if we're gonna make it for sure. Maybe even have one of the Marines aboard be someone that Miranda knows and is close with, and so when she sees it get shot down, there's some emotional investment towards it. This would also give Miranda a reason to be scared to leave the Chief's side from now on throughout the movie, so she can make the decision to stay with him instead of leaving aboard any of the other ships or lifeboats throughout the film. It's important to note that even with this decision, she is not unafraid of the Covenant or the battle. She's still terrified, but just after seeing that when people leave the Chief, they're not necessarily safe either, that she's more afraid of leaving his side. You see, this is how you build an iconic character, because believe it or not, me and most people doubt themselves. We struggle, we start off as weak. Whenever we try anything new, we get scared, we don't know what we're doing, right? And so if we're gonna relate to this character, she needs to not trust herself. She needs to struggle, be weak, make mistakes. And then once we grow to know her and trust her, we can see her start to get a little bit better. She makes a couple of mistakes, like Neo falling the first time he tries to jump in the Matrix. But we see her start to get better and better until she trusts herself. By the end of the film, it's pretty hard and decent. She's become a hero. And then throughout the series, we can see her getting better and better. And then by 2, and especially by 3, she has become the badass that we all expected her to be. Anyway, that's a separate point. After this, the plot continues normally again, but with Miranda continually having dreams about her father dying and him coming back as a zombie-like creature to tell her it was all her fault and things like that. I also like the idea of Miranda constantly asking Cortana about her father's service record and things he's accomplished to show how obsessive she is to live up to his greatness. And because Cortana is based off of Miranda's mom's brain, there's a lot of good material there for Miranda to maybe snap at Cortana at one point because she can't quite distinguish the two in her mind. Like in this scene. Interior, Halo, library, night. A vast, eerie foreigner facility filled with towering dark corridors and glowing alien structures. The air is thick with tension. Master Chief and Miranda Keyes cautiously advance throughout the facility. The atmosphere is tense. The silence is interrupted only by distant echoes of machinery and the occasional drip of alien fluids. Miranda, whispering, anxious. Stay alert. We don't know what we're walking into. Cortana, voiceover, coolly. Miranda, we've detected significant movement ahead. It's crucial that you follow my instructions to avoid direct contact. Miranda, determined. We've been through this. I have a plan. We can use the environment to our advantage. Cortana, voiceover, urgently. Miranda, this isn't time for improvisation. The flood is extremely dangerous. Follow the path I outlined for Miranda, interrupting, frustrated. I got it, Cortana, but sometimes you have to adapt. I can handle this. Ignoring Cortana's advice, Miranda leads her team down a different corridor. The path seems promising until they encounter a horde of flood. The scene quickly devolves into chaos. Miranda yelling over gunfire. Get back! Fall back! Master Chief and Miranda fight through the flood until they are all lifeless on the ground. But once the sound of gunfire ends, it reveals the sound of desperate, labored breathing. Miranda and Master Chief turn to see Sergeant Jenkins on the ground, his body convulsing. A small flood combat form is latched onto him. Sergeant Jenkins, guttural, agonized. Help! Please! Miranda's eyes widen in horror. She rushes towards Jenkins, but the sight is chilling. His cries grow fainter, his body convulsing uncontrollably as the flood takes over. Cortana, voiceover, urgently. Miranda, stay back! Ignoring Cortana's instructions, Miranda attempts to pull the combat form off of Jenkins. As she does, Master Chief cocks his weapon. As Miranda relentlessly tries to free Jenkins from the combat form on his face, his skin begins to bubble and distort grotesquely. His hand reaches out slowly, as if trying to grasp Miranda. Master Chief raises his weapon. Miranda, yelling as Master Chief shoots. No! Master Chief fires just before Jenkins' body can attack Miranda. The shot echoes through the cold, dark hall. Jenkins' body goes limp. His suffering abruptly ended. Miranda watches in shock as Jenkins' body slumps to the ground, lifeless. Miranda, enraged, devastated. No! Why would you? In a moment of raw anguish, Miranda lashes out at Master Chief, hitting his armor ineffectually. Her fists bounce off the unyielding metal. Cortana, voiceover, calmly, focused. He was already lost. Miranda collapses, tears streaming down her face. Her anger turns towards Cortana as she hears her voice over the comms, explaining the tactical necessity of the decision. Cortana, voiceover, calmly. Miranda, I was trying to prevent this. We had to act quickly. Miranda, snapping bitterly. Shut up. Shut up, Cortana. I can't be responsible for this. We could have done something. It can't always be on me, Halsey. The words cut deep. The mention of Halsey is a stinging reminder of her strained relationship with her mother and her frustration with Cortana's personal and psychological resemblance to her mother, Catherine Halsey. Cortana, voiceover, somberly. Miranda, I'm so sorry. So that's just a little snapshot, but anyway, you see what I mean. There's plenty of room to dig in there. Also, I'd like to see her and the Chief get separated in the library when she has to follow Guilty Spark and manage by the skin of her teeth to stay alive, and she gets the index before finding Chief again. This could force her to build confidence and trust herself. It's also a great opportunity for character development. And meanwhile, Chief could be discovering things about the Forerunner facility, and maybe him and Cortana are finding ancient markings and trying to find what to make of it when they're trying to get back to Miranda. Also, and this might sound kind of harsh, but I really think Miranda should be the one to kill her father when they find him overtaken by the flood. Chief should try to do it, absolutely, but Miranda should beat him to it. This would build upon a couple of things. The first time when she tried to shoot and Chief shot that elite in the beginning, and then also when Chief had to shoot Jenkins, but she couldn't do it. But now this time, when it really counts, she does it, and she's able to beat Chief to the punch. This would harden her character and also act as a symbol of her becoming the adult she needs to be and taking the place of her father metaphorically. Okay, so as a therapist, I have to get one little note of psychological significance here. See, Sigmund Freud said that a boy can only become a man after his father dies. Now, whether you agree with that or not, the symbol is a powerful one. This will also make that tear in the beginning of Halo 2 hold 1,000,000 times more gravity. She is becoming a hero, and she's learning the hard way that it isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's not rewarding at all to do what needs to be done. To move past her father's death emotionally, which she couldn't do with her mother, which I believe she should think died on reach at this point, and she also couldn't do with Sergeant Jenkins earlier. Then, of course, after this, they get to the Pillar of Autumn, and they have to blow it up before leaving, like in the game. But this time, Miranda will be directly linked to the cause of how the Pillar of Autumn blows up. She will be the one that pulls the final switch, as it were. But at this point, she's learned to trust herself and be okay with listening to Cortana and fighting alongside Chief, so Cortana can be kind of explaining to her what she's got to do and kind of help fill in those gaps, right? So she's incorporating her father and her mother into this. From Cortana, she's going to learn how to trust people and take advice, and what she's learned from Chief is to not hesitate as she leads into this decision. Ultimately, she's able to succeed, they get on the ship, and fly away. And there you go. Plenty of character development there, plenty of interesting emotional intrigue. They fly off, Cortana says dust and echoes, but this time, Miranda is the one to say, we're just getting started, instead of Chief.
I think we're just getting started.
Now, I know the structure of this pitch is kind of a hot mess, but the point of this video was not to write a whole script that could be taken and immediately filmed, like I said, but just to show how many incredibly great pieces the original game has to work with. A classic sci-fi film is just waiting to be made from this property. And like I said, I have no doubt that Christopher Nolan would knock it out of the park, but really, any decent director could do it justice because Halo has so much going for it already. It's a great story, you just have to be willing to trust the source material for once. That's the point of all this. Of course, I took a few liberties to adapt my idea into a more traditional story structure, but for the most part, it stays almost exactly true to the first game. I'm so tired of hearing that you can't adapt a video game directly to the screen, and that's why things like the Halo TV show's alternative silver timeline had to exist. That's just not necessary. You can absolutely stay true to the story with a few tweaks here and there. And a story like this with a director like Christopher Nolan, the hero that Halo deserves, is just waiting to be made. First of all, we already know Chris Nolan can do incredible father-daughter stories like he did with Interstellar, and we know that he can handle high-concept storytelling like Inception, Tenet, Memento, and almost all of his films, actually. So all I'm saying, if by some miracle you are watching this, please consider it Chris, if you have not already. Also, please forgive me for calling you Chris, but naming you directly, fully, all the time just kind of felt unnatural. Anyway, to get you started, here are my top picks for casting. Obviously Steve and Jen for Chief and Cortana respectively, but for Miranda, I have a few ideas. My first choice would be Daisy Edgar Jones.
You bother me again, and I'll kill you!
You see, she's a great actress and she fits the description, but honestly, when I was doing some research, I saw this image in particular and I just kind of stopped my search and thought, wow, that's exactly who I picture as the badass young Miranda that could survive a franchise and come out the other side as an icon. Basing my first casting choice off of one picture alone might not be the best idea, but look at this picture and tell me that you don't exactly see the Miranda that I was describing. Anyway, my next choice might seem a little bit odd, but Karen Gillan with brown or black hair could also do a great job in this role. She has such a range with roles like Nebula and then Doctor Who and Jumanji. I have no doubt she could do it. Then next, for Captain Keyes, I'm kind of torn between Kevin Costner and Jeff Bridges. Kevin Costner because he's great and could definitely do it justice, and also I think looks more of the part, but I have never seen an actor with better range than Jeff Bridges, so I feel like he'd be pretty great too. I mean, I know that usually when I think of Jeff Bridges, I think about like The Big Lebowski, but if you could shave his beard and cut his hair, give him like a buzz cut, I think he would do perfectly.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like, your opinion, man.
Specifically, I'm thinking about him from the movie K-Pax, where he plays this therapist and he's a little bit more mellow and serious. He's also got this great leader's edge. You know, he demonstrated that in Tron Legacy when he played Clue, and I know that was the bad guy. He still was able to kind of be commanding and have this great prowess about him, and I feel like he's got, I don't know, he's got all of the pieces. He could do so great. Anyway, I hope I've convinced you, Chris. You know what? I'm gonna be hopeful and say that you are watching this video. I know you're subscribed and are one of the biggest fans that I have, but I hope I have pushed you in the right direction if you were on the fence about this project at all. We sure could use you, my friend. As for everyone else watching, what did you guys think? Who would you cast in this film? What would your top picks be for Miranda and Jacob Keyes respectively? Also, who would you pick if you had to replace one of the classic roles like Chief or Cortana if they didn't agree to do it? And lastly, did you agree with me about the changes I made to the plot? How would you guys have changed the plot to fit into a film script? Let me know in the comments below, and thank you guys so much for watching. Oh wait, and what did you guys think about my Halo movie case? I took some serious time thinking about what it would look like and how to make it actually kind of convincing. I got a lot of positive feedback when I posted this a couple days ago, and anyway, it took me an extraordinarily long time to make it, so I just kind of want to brag about it and show you a little bit more close up so you can see it. Anyway, now it'll be kind of a cool and weird piece to add to my set of interesting fictional memorabilia, and maybe just to confuse people who haven't seen the latest updates. So anyway, let me know if you guys like it, and maybe I could post a better, more clear picture of it somewhere so you guys could, you know, get a better look at it, right? I'm just kidding. This is not for sale. Please don't sue me. It's just for fun.
This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Spartan 117. Thank you for finishing this video on the meaning in between. Chief, out.